And Major Garrett and Nancy Cordes join me now from inside the spin room at the Thomas and Mack Center at UNLV, of course, the site of last night's debate. And Major, the evening did start with substance. Certainly several issues were covered, but if there is one headline to be taken, it is Trump's repeated unwillingness to pledge to accept the results of the election. I know you spoke to many in and around the campaign afterward last night. What are they saying?
Well, by this time of the campaign, Josh, the Trump organization has perfected the art of tongue clucking about the media obsession with this or that. And as they arrived, Team Trump, to the spin room last night, their tongues were already clucking about the media fascination with this one particular issue, as if it didn't matter, as if it was being overhyped by the media, when in fact at no previous presidential debate has there ever even been a discussion, a disagreement about two topics. Will the election be conducted fairly, and will the results be respected? Now, several of them fell back on Al Gore in 2000, saying after the fact he challenged the election. True enough. But before the fact, it wasn't even asked. But if it had been, I'm quite sure Vice President Al Gore would have said, yes, the election will be conducted fairly, and yes, I'll respect the results. And at point of fact, in the end, after the Supreme Court ruled in Bush v. Gore, Al Gore did respect the results of the election. So this was a pivotal moment. You can't call it anything other than that. And even though Trump was not as critical of the underlying foundations of American elections as he had been this week, by leaving open whether or not he would challenge or accept the results, he has created this issue, given it more fuel, more fire, and the Trump inner circle can cluck its tongue all at once. But this is topic A coming out of last night's debate.
And the interesting thing, Josh, was that all of the interesting thing, Josh, was that all of his Republican surrogates, when they came into the spin room after the debate, uniformly said, "Oh, well, he's going to accept the results at the end of the day." I talked to Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. We talked to Governor Rick Perry of Texas. I talked to Dr. Ben Carson. I know you talked to his running mate. And they all said, "Well, I predict at the end of the day he will accept the results." Well, who has ever had a great track record on predicting what Donald Trump will do or say? And it just further heightened the impression that he is at odds with his own party and indeed with his own team on this issue.
And you had to get to a level of conversation on this topic, Josh, with the surrogates to even get to that point. Don Jr., who is an advisor to his father, I finally said, look, you can't eliminate fraud in every instance, in every election. If it's mathematically insignificant, he said, oh, yeah, my father's a reasonable guy. If it doesn't affect the outcome of the election, of course he'll accept it. I ran that same line of argumentation toward his campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. And she said, in our camera lens, well, we'll see. If there's not evidence of widespread fraud, well, we'll still see. So absent evidence of widespread fraud, they're still not certain that he'll accept the results? That kind of uncertainty is going to continue to dog Donald Trump for the remainder of this campaign, because we've got 19 days, whatever, how many days we have to go, I've lost track. Because he's kept it alive. He's given it a salience that he could have left open and said, look, I'm going to take a look at, but oh yes, of course I will accept it if in fact it meets all the basic standards of an election we've always had in this country. That's not a hard answer to come up with.
And one point on the Al Gore comparison. Al Gore contested the election because the finish in Florida was vanishingly small, and he called for a recount. And in the end, guess what? They were separated by 537 votes. He didn't contest the election because he said there was widespread fraud. What Donald Trump is saying is, look, whether it's close or whether I lose by a landslide, I think that the fix is in for me, and so I may not accept the results, which is a completely different situation.
And it's worth pointing out that what Al Gore did was permissible under Florida law. That's why he withdrew his concession, his original intent to concede the election. He said, wait a minute, the results are so tight, there can be a recount under Florida law. So let's go through that process. They did. And when the Supreme Court had to step in, as it did, Al Gore, memorably, many people said that might have been the best speech he gave in that entire campaign, conceded on behalf of the country, on behalf of democracy and the institution of the presidency itself.
And I was struck, Mike Pence, yet another one, who said 1 hour before the debate began that, of course, they would accept the results of the election, and just afterward was also saying, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Nancy, we heard Hillary Clinton's initial response last night on that stage, called it horrifying. What was the campaign saying afterward?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that they called it a disqualifying moment and another example of Donald Trump putting himself before the good of the country. And I think that they feel that President Obama said it best the day before the debate when he told Donald Trump to stop whining. And that is a rallying cry that they have picked up and run with. They say that he's simply whining like a young child who has not gotten, the toy that he asked for because he is behind in this race. And they're essentially saying, look, you can't be someone who's claiming to be a big, strong leader, but then always play the victim when things aren't going your way.
And Major, I know that your reporting afterwards suggested that some in the Trump campaign did believe that, in fact, this stance was something of a move to the center for the candidate, away from a more hardline stance, if you will. But I also want to ask you about that reporting afterward that suggested on the part of many Republicans that Donald Trump's performance last night, if nothing else, did perhaps shore up some questionable, tenuous down-ballot races.
So several Republicans I talked to after the debate and during the debate rated Trump's performance on balance, and many of these conversations were before this memorable moment we've just rehashed ad nauseum, said he's done solidly well. He's held up his end of the bargain, probably didn't do enough to transform this race and make him a likely winner in their opinion, but he may have done enough to solidify a close proximity finish to Hillary Clinton. And for many Republicans who are looking not just at the race for the presidency, but the race to control the House of Representatives, to retain control of that body, and to retain control of the United States Senate, they said Trump may have done down-ballot Republicans a good turn, because by keeping the race close, their perspective is that gives those Senate Republicans running for re-election a better chance, particularly in states like Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, even Wisconsin, Arizona, Missouri, North Carolina. And as one Republican memorably told me, the difference between a 4-point Trump loss and a 12 or 10-point Trump loss could be 5 Senate seats and control of that body. And they thought, in the end, Trump's performance was enough to keep it closer to that 4 to 5 or 3-point margin and away from that 10, 11, 12-point margin.
And one thing that Clinton did not do, that Democrats were hoping that she would, was tie him more tightly to these down-ballot candidates, to argue that, he's just a symptom of a party that has lost its way and can't be trusted to lead the country. They really wanted her to do that because they want him to pull those candidates down and give Democrats a better shot at evening things up in the House and perhaps taking control of the Senate. But she stayed away from that, and she really took a play-it-safe approach, Josh, because she didn't need to do anything dramatic in this race to help her own chances. She wants the status quo. She wants to freeze this race in time if she can. So she didn't want to do anything that was going to jeopardize the lead that she has right now.
And in an odd way, Josh, and sometimes politics is nothing if not odd, with Trump's reservations on a national debate stage about whether or not the election would be conducted fairly or he would respect the results, that does give Republicans looking for a very quick opening to differentiate themselves from Trump an immediate opportunity to do so. And if it's helpful in their Senate race, I guarantee you they will do it.
Well, Major, I can confirm we are 19 days out. And as
Thank
always,
you. Okay.
Major Garrett, Nancy Cordes, we do so very much appreciate the insight.
You got it.
Good to be with you, Josh.